British Empire, Sultan's Palace. Mr. Grand stood on the balcony of the palace. He was clearly not in the mood. He heard a familiar voice that distracted him. A guard approached Grand to find out why the gentleman was not sleeping, and if everything was okay with him. The guard noticed that the morning star was brighter than usual, and the weather was good for night walks. The gentleman confirmed this. It was at this time that he liked to walk. Looking at the morning star, the guy remembered an old legend. Legend said that when the star was as bright as it is today, the incarnation of the goddess Alexa would appear and save the man who would become the greatest sultan. The guard could not believe Mr. Grand's words. He laughed, reminding him that this is why it is considered a legend. However, the guy was still waiting for the incarnation of the goddess Alexa, who has a beautiful soul. That same night, in the middle of one of the chambers of the palace, a red blanket appeared, and everything would have been fine, but it began to move. It turned out to be a red robe, and under this robe was a stranger. Taking off her hood and looking at herself in the mirror, the girl could not believe her eyes and how all this was possible. The girl began to convince herself that this whole world could be just a dream. She began to pinch herself, hit her cheeks to test the sensitivity of the pain. As it turned out, she felt it, which means it was not a dream after all. The girl was so busy looking at herself that she did not notice that there was someone else in the room. This someone took the sword out of its sheath and said that he recognized her courage since the girl entered his room alone. This took the stranger by surprise, and she froze in place. The guy put a sword to her neck and asked who she was. In her thoughts, the only question was when he managed to wake up. Second Prince of the British Empire, ruler of the capital, Castiel. It immediately seemed strange to him that he slept much more soundly than usual. The ruler suspected that the stranger had given him sleeping pills. The girl was silent, which made him even angrier. She froze only because she didn't know how to explain everything to him. The fact that Castiel woke up so suddenly was unexpected in itself. It was strange to worry about something like this in a situation like this. The stranger did not take her eyes off Suleiman's naked torso. She thought about him covering himself, since she could not concentrate. Coming closer to her, he asked who brought her here. Was it those annoying elders? The girl began to deny that the ruler had made a mistake, and no one had brought her here, and she did not understand how she ended up in such a situation. Castiel believed that the stranger decided to avoid responsibility by pretending to know nothing. It was a very serious crime to enter his bedroom without permission. Therefore, it would not be a problem for the ruler to cut off the girl's head right now. The stranger could not believe that she would die right here in the prime of her life. Suddenly, Castiel sharply lowered his sword. Something interested him in the girl. He took the crystal that hung around the girl's neck and said that this was a sign that she was the property of the Sultan. The Sultan asked if this was a joke from his mother and not from the elders. A smile appeared on his face as he assumed that the girl had come to spend the night with him. The stranger became worried. She did not understand what he wanted to say by this. She began to shake her head, denying that there was no point in this. Castiel grinned. It looked like the girl was not going to open her mouth until the very end. The Sultan warned that if she did not speak, he would have to take her to the torture chamber. She looked at him with a pitiful look, hoping that she heard it right. The first thing that arose in her thoughts was that she would be put in the electric chair. But then the girl realized that such a method of torture did not exist in this era. She realized that if she did not start speaking normally, she would die. The stranger began to meow throughout the room. Realizing what she had just done, the girl abruptly covered her mouth with her hands. Castiel stood dumbfounded. The girl thought that it would be better if she died. Otherwise, she would now burn with shame. Forcing a smile, she said that she did not want to die. They say that life is a series of unpredictable events, but it was difficult to believe in such absurdity that whatever you say, the Sultan will not listen to it. Everyone in the market became alarmed and began to catch this cat. The girl found herself in a world she had never seen before. Not only was everything unfamiliar, but she was also in the form of a cat. People drove her into a corner. To their delight, the chase was over, but the cat did not give up and showed aggression. All she wanted was to be fed, but people did not understand her. A man from the crowd began to ask everyone to let the cat go, because it was so small and cute, but the crowd did not give up. It turned out that the government was looking for cats, and this one had white fur and eyes of different colors, which was very rare. While the crowd was arguing, the cat decided to run away. She pushed off from the standing box and jumped over the fence. Suddenly, her paws broke off and she began to fall down. The cat couldn't believe it, because she practically managed to escape. They managed to catch the animal and put it in a cage. Those watching were surprised that after a while the cat was still angry, but decided not to pay attention to it. There were tears in her eyes. She was thinking about how to quickly gain freedom, since she was not a simple stray cat, but a human. Finally, Sarah could relax without any worries. It was nice to just lie there without unnecessary thoughts. The girl came to her senses, deciding that she could not waste her precious time in this way. She was going to watch all the films that she had been putting off. Sarah stood up to get some snacks when her vision went dark. Unfortunately, these were the last memories from her real world. Suddenly, and without any warning, her life ended. Having dozed off for a second, the cat lost track of the time she spent in this cage. The lights drowned out the crying of Sarah's cat, whose voice rang in her head. It seemed that after her death, the girl found herself in some kind of fictional story. In this story, she received the body of a fragile kitten. Living on the streets had been very difficult lately. Perhaps she felt a little safer in this prison. Then memories surfaced in Sarah's head that the men said that the ruler was looking for a cat, and they couldn't miss this chance. She decided to try, although she didn't know the point. But obviously her life would be better if she became the Sultan's cat. Sarah decided to take the risk of making the ruler her servant and live in wealth forever. The cat smelled the smell of food. Someone was frying meat nearby, and she began to drool. The man saw that the cat perked up at the sight of meat. He offered her some, and with all her appearance, she tried to show how hungry she was. The man began to laugh, saying that she should not even dream about him, since this is only his piece of meat. Sarah was furious. He could only allow himself to be bullied like that because she was a cat. Someone came into the room and distracted the beholder, and this piece of meat fell out of his hands. The cat began to follow him. Someone suddenly stepped on the meat. The guy was indignant that garbage was scattered in this place at every step. He reached for the cat, taking it by the scruff of the neck, saying that it best fit the description. The guy couldn't believe that this piece of crap was a legendary cat. Sarah was very outraged by such a phrase directed at her. When the cat heard that she was being chosen to join the Sultan's palace, she was happy. Of course, it was good that she was released so quickly, but so far no one has explained why she was needed. For a moment, Sarah suggested that it might have something to do with the sacrifices. On the threshold to the palace, the cat was greeted with great cordiality. She couldn't believe she was in such a place. She hoped it wasn't a dream. On the columns, Sarah saw a red diamond. It was the most expensive stone. The place turned out to be good, but she didn't know when they might drive her away. So she decided that if she took one diamond, then she wouldn't have to worry about anything for the rest of her life. The cat wanted to find her way home, despite the fact that it would be a very long time. She did not intend to return to the street. Jumping onto the column, she completely forgot that she was still very small to climb to such a height. From the side, they watched the cat and were touched. The guy grinned, saying that she was very interesting, this cat from the prophecy. The guy who brought the cat asked Mr. Grand if he was sure that it was the same cat. In his eyes, she was just a vile animal. The gentleman was sure of this. He took the cat in his arms and said that this was the embodiment of Britain that he had been waiting for. According to him, the cat was the guardian of the goddess who would protect the new sultan. The guy laughed and began to apologize that he had not introduced himself to her yet. He was the Grand, the priest of this palace. He looked at Sarah with a gentle gaze, saying that he was really looking forward to her, the cat from the prophecy. Holding her close, they went inside. Sarah realized that Grand knew that she was human. Putting the cat on the poof, he began to tell this long story. There's a legend in his kingdom. A long time ago, the country was plunged into a long drought. All the springs dried up. The streets were filled with sadness from the endless epidemics. When all the sounds of life almost died down, the goddess of water took pity on the inhabitants of the kingdom she protected. She used her power and saved the country. Everyone wanted the goddess to stay with them, but this wish was not destined to come true. Before leaving, she promised one thing. When Venus shines brightest, The embodiment of the goddess with a beautiful soul will come to them, the one who will save the greatest sultan. The prophecy said that the incarnation would appear in the form of a cat, which is why the priest asked to look for the cat. Turning his attention to Sarah, he realized that she didn't really believe him. It was strange for her even that the goddess's messenger was a cat. She believed that a person with a beautiful soul should look different, at least be a young, cheerful lady who looks like a saint. In any case, Sarah understood that the past life, or this one, the same could not be said about her. She believed that a beautiful soul, this only applies to the main characters of fairy tales, and she could not even dream of such a thing. Sarah was the kind of person who thought every day only about survival. Her life could not be a fairy tale. Seeing that the cat was crying, Grand realized that he had touched on too heavy a topic. Although he had divine eyes to find a suitable soul, he did not know how to read minds. The stranger tried to calm her down, and Sarah really liked it. For Grand, it was very touching. It seems that she trusted him. The cat's stomach growled from hunger, and she blushed from embarrassment, although it was not visible because of her fur. The priest realized that he had made a mistake, because first he needed to fill her stomach. After some time, the table was filled with various foods, all of which were just for Sarah. The cat immediately attacked the piece of meat. Grand laughed. If he had known that she was so hungry, he would have fed her much earlier. Sarah decided that instead of going back to the streets, she would stay here in comfort and live up to the cat from the prophecy. While the cat was eating everything it saw, the priest said that there is one secret that few know. He asked to listen to him carefully, since there is a way to return back to human form. Sarah was alarmed because if there is such a way, why was he still silent? It may not be possible to return to the old world, but it will be possible to become a man. The cat began to touch him with its paw so that he would continue the story, but the priest said that he would tell everything after dinner. This method was at the experimental level, but why not try it? Sarah began to climb on Grand. He laughed and took this as a positive answer. Taking the cat, he took her to the bath. She was very unhappy with this, since there was no question of this. The girls asked her to be patient a little, but Sarah was furious. She thought that she had trusted the guy in vain. She didn't think that a bath could be so heavy. Now she understood how her cat felt. The priest said that the time had almost come, after which he put a special collar on the cat, which he made himself, and asked not to take it off. He understood her thoughts after the bell was hung around her neck, but it was better to keep it to herself. An employee came in and informed the priest that all preparations were completed. Grand extended his hand to the cat and said that it was time to go become a human. Her joy knew no bounds. The priest brought her to some strange place. It didn't look like anyone lived here. He felt that she was worried because she had not been in this place. Sarah saw the sleeping guy, but Grand began to reassure her that she had nothing to worry about, since the stranger was under the influence of sleeping pills. But his words did not convince her. In order to become human, she needed to awaken the prince with a kiss. Sarah began to struggle. She really didn't like this idea. The priest admitted that the prophecy was a little strange. According to him, she should have already felt the energy of the curse that filled the room. At first glance, the room seemed simply large and empty, but it was filled with a gloomy, bloody tone that was a little unpleasant. Sarah wondered what kind of curse could cause such sensations. Grand said that this is the room of Castiel, the second prince. The guy is the most important person in the country. Everyone believes that Castiel will become the next sultan. The priest understood how the cat felt, but unfortunately, the prince was suffering from some unknown curse. No one was able to make any progress in removing it, so they relied on the incarnation of the goddess Britannia. Grand was sure that it was a cat. The choice was hers whether to believe it or not. But if the incarnation came into contact with a person who was suitable for the place of the sultan, it could become a person. The priest asked her to just try, since a kiss was necessary between the incarnation and the prince. He decided not to put pressure on the cat, but to leave them alone, allowing them to get to know each other better. Sarah began to rush after him, but Grand assured her that the prince would not wake up, because he was under the effect of a sleeping pill, and he would be outside, so no one would enter. After wishing her good luck, the guy left. The cat was beside herself with anger, because it didn't matter how much she wanted to become a human. How could she kiss a person she was seeing for the first time? She gathered her thoughts and decided that she had to do it, because it was just a kiss. Deciding that there was no point in hanging around here all night and being afraid, the cat approached the prince and kissed him. She did it, but it was very awkward, especially the fact that she was kissing a person in the form of a cat. Sarah's heart began to pound furiously, as if it was about to burst out of her chest. Losing consciousness, she fell to the floor, pulling off the bedspread that had covered her. Castiel woke up, not remembering how he fell asleep, much less how he ended up in his bedroom. Usually he felt so tired after sleep, but today it was much easier. He felt as if he was being licked by a dog, but he did not understand where the animal could have come from. Rising from the bed, he found a girl sitting near his mirror. Taking out his sword, he asked her who she was and how she got here. Sarah didn't know what to answer him. There were a lot of thoughts in her head. She only began to meow loudly in response. The only sound that could be made was that of a cat, since she did not know at all what to do in such a situation. The prince was also dizzy. He didn't understand why she was only meowing. Did she really not understand anything? It seems that this was her last chance to ask the prince to take her back. Sarah was about to start a dialogue when she realized that she could not speak human. Castiel started first. He realized that she was not involved in this, but still entered the royal bedroom without permission. He had no choice. He had to bring the girl to justice, so the guy demanded that she answer his questions. Sarah wanted to scream that she couldn't speak, no matter how much she wanted to. And the worst thing was that she didn't know how long she would be in this state. Again, this pain in the chest, and again she lost her strength. Castiel began to call for help. The prince did not have time to do anything when the girl disappeared, leaving only a red blanket in her place. The prince was at a loss, not understanding anything about who this woman was. The guards saw suspicious smoke coming from the room. They gave the order to check whether there was a fire or an attack. The cat stood outside the door, hoping that no one would notice her. Grand approached from behind. Taking the cat in his arms, he exhaled. It was lucky that the soldiers did not notice her. The cat didn't understand why he was happy, because he didn't even know what happened to her because of him. The priest hugged the cat to his chest and began to leave before anything happened. Having found a safe place, Grand asked the cat how the meeting with the prince went, whether she had turned into a human, and whether the legend had lied. Sarah decided not to tell him anything. The priest was very surprised that it didn't work out, but didn't get upset, saying that one attempt doesn't judge him and he can try again. Patting the cat on the head, he suggested that she go to bed, since she was probably very tired. She wanted to ask him a lot, but she wanted to sleep much more. A lot happened yesterday, but today everything was quiet. No matter how high her status was, it was hard to wander around alone in cat form. Gran was carrying Sarah somewhere, telling her that the meeting would be short and she had nothing to worry about. They arrived at the appointed place. The priest hesitated a little. It seemed that they had made someone wait. Before Sarah was the most powerful and brightest person in the country, the great Emma, the wife of the Sultan. The queen noticed that the priest and the cat were a little late. Grand immediately began to show his respect to the great Emma. He raised the cat up, saying that this was the same cat from the prophecy that Her Majesty wanted to see. Sarah did not think that meeting such a person, in her opinion, she looked too young. The girl asked if this was the same cat, the embodiment of the goddess of Britain. Eye color and coat, everything corresponded to the legend, small and cute like a white cloud. Emma said about someone that he would come soon, so they would discuss everything later, and also warned that the guy might be angry that a woman was brought into his room. Grand warned that the cat understood everything, so he asked to be a little more restrained. The girl asked if she could take a cat instead of her son. The priest refused. Since it was impossible, the cat was given by heaven just for him. Emma was a little upset. She was sorry to give such a cutie to such a cruel person. Sarah heard a familiar voice. Her Majesty's son entered the room. In front of her stood the same guy in whose room the cat ended up. Her Majesty greeted her only son and invited him to sit down and drink tea together. The prince seemed not to hear her and began to complain that his mother did not understand him because he had received such difficult tasks from the Sultan. On the table, he found a cat curled up in a ball and immediately asked his mother what kind of hairball it was. Sarah began to worry that the prince would recognize her, But then she realized that he only saw her in human form. Castiel didn't understand why the cat was looking at him so suspiciously and smiling. Before the tea party, the guy wanted to ask a question regarding the commotion that happened last night in the palace. Mrs. Emma was aware of this incident. The prince continued, saying that a woman came to his room at night. He was sure that his mother was aware of this too. The woman, grinning, said that she had nothing to do with this. Castiel realized that his mother would not tell him anything more. The Sultan noticed that in addition to him and his mother, a priest was present at the tea party, which was quite surprising. The guy correctly noticed that Grand had a very interesting story for the prince. Emma said that the creature, which her son called a hairball, will be officially accepted into their family, so he should treat her with respect. Every heir must have a cat, and this one was quite difficult to find. It was prophetic, so it would be of great use to the prince. Castiel really did not want to seem biased, but he believed that it was not worth paying attention to such nonsense as this legend. According to the priest, it was not just a matter of prophecy. The sultans always had cats with them. If the prince kept it with him, it would become another support to his power, Gran said. The prince was convinced that he could defend the right to the throne on his own. The Grand asked whether the sultan's health had improved after hearing a positive answer, but said that last night the cat came into his room for a short time. This was considered cat magic, so the priest strongly recommended keeping the cat with you, as it would be beneficial in many ways. Realizing that there was no point in arguing, the prince agreed to take the cat. Sarah was in vain to rejoice. The Sultan, instead of becoming her servant, left her in a cage for several days, and he himself did not even appear. The girl began to wonder if she should repeat the actions that made her become human, but then she decided that she would never do this. A girl named Aaron couldn't believe that the cat was put in such a depressing place, even though she saw it every day. It was more like a dream. Her older brother was too busy, so she couldn't meet him, and there were no other people her age in the palace. The cat was like a friend to her. The girl asked not to take care of it. Aaron was very happy at the sight of the cat. They had similar personalities, so Sarah was a little worried about her. The girl brought some kind of bag. She decided that the cat was completely bored here, so she brought her toys that would belong only to her. Sarah couldn't believe it. She was an adult inside a cat, but unfortunately, no one knew this except the priest. Having thrown away all thoughts that she was a person, the cat had fun with the girl. The two of them had a lot of fun. Having played enough, the cat fell asleep right in the middle of the room, waking up to find that Castiel had returned. She discovered a vile energy that had not been there during the day. The energy was even worse than the last time they met in this room. The cat began to wake up the Sultan, but he felt so bad that he didn't even react to anything. Castiel's symptoms were similar to those that Sarah had before entering this world. Since early childhood, Castiel suffered from a curse. It was not to say that he was a good person, but the cat was obliged not to let him die. His whole body was covered in black spots from the curse. Sarah placed her paws on his chest, thinking in her head that he couldn't die. Without understanding what she had just done, the cat decided to try again. The spots on Castiel's body began to disappear. Sarah thought that she had managed to suppress the curse. At least when she was near, he felt better. The cat felt unwell. Her body seemed to be falling apart. Morning of the next day, when the prince woke up, he realized that the pain in his chest had disappeared. The cat was sleeping next to him. Gran's words that the cat would help him turned out to be true. Castiel could not even imagine that he would find a creature that could take away his pain. Having hugged the cat, he told her that she had helped him a lot. Waking up next to the prince, the cat jumped up in panic. The guy began to laugh and calm her down. The future sultan showed the hand that Sarah had bitten in a dream, but then added that she saved him. The cat couldn't believe that she did it. Stroking her neck, Castiel said that she would be his cat. She was very surprised, not understanding why the attitude towards her had changed so dramatically. As soon as Aaron had a budget, she bought a dress for the cat. Sarah stared at him, thinking that it looked completely uncomfortable. Why wear something like that? The ruler's inauguration ceremony was soon to take place. They had to show the nobility and beauty of the cat. Sometimes the girl answered as if she understood what the cat was thinking. Having dressed up the animal, Aaron was delighted. She was sure that in front of her was a sweet and gentle cat, full of nobility. Since the animal had not dressed before, the girl decided not to sit in the room, but to take her to a beautiful place. She brought the cat to the place where she usually hides when someone wants to scold her. Having placed the animal on a stone, Aaron went to make a beautiful wreath for her. Seeing a bird nearby, Sarah tried to reason with herself. She should have behaved calmly and not acted like a cat. Her sanity fled. The bird clearly annoyed her. The cat began to climb the tree with a running start to catch the bird. Her paws slipped off and she began to fall down. Suddenly, someone caught her. Sarah could not take her eyes off her savior. In front of her was a handsome and noble man. The stranger smiled. He really liked this cat, especially her unusual eyes. Sarah's thoughts were only about this handsome man. Unlike Castiel, who had a scary atmosphere around him, this guy had the feeling of a prince on a white horse. Castiel, of course, was also handsome, but this blonde one seemed much more attractive to the cat. Seeing the stone on the collar, the stranger realized that she lived in the Sultan's harem. He was surprised why there was no one near the cat, since it was dangerous for her to be alone. The animal agreed with him in her thoughts, because she had already been through a lot. The stranger decided not to take away the cat's freedom to run around the palace, especially since he was not the only one who felt stuffy there. Sarah didn't know what to do with this information. The cat saw the flowers, picked one, and presented it to the guy, meowing, but thinking in her head that there was such a beauty next to him, and he definitely shouldn't be sad. The stranger did not understand this gesture, but thought that she was going to eat this plant. Sarah felt utter disappointment at the lack of understanding. The guy presented the cat with an artificial flower, asking him not to touch the living ones anymore. She was very happy, since this was the first flower given to her in her life, and even from such a handsome man. Their idyll was interrupted by Aaron. She could not find the cat for a long time. The girl said that they had better go back, when she noticed that same stranger in front of her. It was Prince Theo. Aaron looked guilty. She couldn't even think that the cat would be with the prince. The guy handed the cat to the girl, adding that she was lucky to have such a beautiful companion. After petting the animal, the prince said goodbye. Aaron thought Theo was very handsome, and Sarah fully supported her. The girl admitted that she fell in love with him like everyone else, dreamed of being sent to his palace, and not to Castiel's palace. Of course, Prince Castiel was also good, but his appearance was frightening. Aaron noticed a flower on the cat. She was surprised at such a gift from the prince. She began to say what this meant in the language of flowers, but without finishing the sentence, she said that the cat should not take it into her head. Theo should have known about this, but for some reason he didn't tell. Sarah was very tired this day. She noticed Castiel's gaze on her. The cat decided to simply ignore him. Approaching from behind, the prince touched her. The animal could not understand what he needed. "It seems that they feed you well. You used to be so thin." Sarah heard these words addressed to you. These words did not really outrage you. The prince took her in his arms, because the priest said that he should be closer to her, and then the curse would weaken. Having placed the cat on the poof, he asked to wait a little, since he had not yet finished with his work. Having picked a flower from the cat, he asked if this decoration bothered her. Sarah tried to show with all her appearance that the guy would return her gift from a handsome man. Although the flower looked ordinary to Castiel, he was confused by its bad meaning. He squeezed the flower into his fist, saying that he didn't know who gave it to her, but it's unlikely that the person did it with good intentions. Sarah could not understand why the prince was acting so strangely, because it was a simple flower. The cat was upset because she was only helped because of the legend, and was treated well only because she was the embodiment of the goddess. She had the feeling that she was playing according to a script invented by others. Castiel wondered if this worthless cat was overeating since she had become chubby. The guy didn't even realize that she understood everything, and Sarah was very indignant. She began to climb his chest, trying to prove that she was not chubby. The prince laughed and called her a pervert, because this time she chose the chest. Sarah's indignation simply knew no bounds. Aaron brought a whole suitcase of jewelry for the cat. Sarah noticed that the girl had been talking all morning, and her eyes were shining. The girl took the box and was going to take away what they would not need. The cat decided to help too, deciding that at least she could carry the jewelry. She was distracted by her new acquaintance. Sarah's eyes shone again. Handsome Theo stood in front of her. "They say that the Sultan's cat should not be left alone. the prince said, stroking the animal. According to Theo, no one has yet understood the cat's charm since she was left alone again. The prince hugged the cat, saying that he was very worried that she would cry because he was not around. Castiel entered the room and in a dissatisfied tone asked to put the cat in its place. Coming closer, he more insistently asked to put the animal in its place. The guys were both brothers and princes, but they were very different. Castiel had already started screaming, but Theo was not going to listen to him. Blonde said that he had already met the cat and became friends, so he was glad to see her again. Looking his brother in the eye, he said that it seemed like she wanted to run away because she didn't like the owner. Having taken the animal by force, Castiel said that this cat is from the prophecy, and does Theo even know what this means? Turning away from his brother, he said that none of this was important, since after the inauguration they would not see each other again, so he should not create trouble now. Theo admitted that he would like to stay in the capital for a while. Remembering the purple flower that was on the cat, Castiel asked if it was his doing. The prince laughed and admitted that it was a small gift. Castiel was still angry at his brother, saying that he knew very well the meaning of this flower. There was a legend about this flower, and the couple was blessed by the goddess. Their love ended in a misunderstanding because another man loved the woman. It was a story about a man who dies at the end. Theo couldn't even imagine that his brother could worry about something like that. The Sultan did not let up. He did not understand why there was a need to give jewelry that brings bad luck. He warned that he would monitor his brother's actions while he was in the capital. Before leaving, Castiel urgently asked Theo to quickly finish his treatment and return to his homeland. The fair-haired man whispered after his brother that he would take everything that belonged to him, and even the cat. The cat was so afraid that she couldn't say anything. Aaron ran into the room. With a dissatisfied face, Castiel asked where the girl had gone. She began to explain that she needed to carry things. The prince handed the cat to the girl and asked her to take care of her, since he no longer wanted to see anyone else with her. Aaron promised that this would not happen again. When the prince left, the girl wondered who he was talking about. That night, the cat waited for Castiel, but he still didn't come. She began to worry that the curse was hurting him again. The cat was thinking that Castiel suddenly came and began to behave like a child whose toy was taken away. She reassured herself that the prince would not become jealous from this. When His Majesty returned, the cat was already sleeping. He sat down next to her on the bed and said that while she was sleeping peacefully, she did not even suspect how those around her were feeling. He felt so bad when he saw her next to that guy. The cat didn't even understand this, the prince thought. The next day, the Sultan's palace. Having put everything on the cat, Aaron panicked that the inauguration ceremony was tomorrow, and she still had not chosen an outfit for her. The girl's brother looked intently at the animal. He could not believe that this was exactly the cat that he had brought. Sarah couldn't believe they were brother and sister. Aaron threatened her brother to keep his mouth shut, since this is the prince's precious cat. Castiel began to avoid the animal after that incident. She couldn't understand what she had done wrong. The prince entered the chambers and kicked out Aaron and her brother, citing the fact that it was already late. Looking at the cat, he said that he had not seen her awake for a long time. Castiel couldn't tell if she was wagging her tail because she was in a bad mood or something. It looks like the guy has learned to understand her signs a little. The prince admitted that he, too, has had a lot of problems in recent days. It was about some woman. Another man was hugging her, and he couldn't even bear the thought of it. Castiel was surprised, as he had never felt this way before. The cat put her paw on him, trying to support him. The prince asked if she was really trying to console him by jumping onto his lap. The cat thought that he was lucky only this time. Looking at the animal, Castiel felt tenderness. He could not believe that he had treated her badly before. If the prince had been in her place, he would not have reassured her after such an attitude. He stopped stroking her. Grabbing the cat by the head, he asked if she did the same with that guy. Sarah woke up in human form. In front of her sat a stranger who was clearly very happy to see her. It was the goddess who brought her into this world, and she waited a long time to meet Sarah. The girl asked if she was the goddess Britannia, and she confirmed. Sarah never thought that a goddess actually existed. The girl had many questions, but the first thing she asked was why she was brought into this world. Britain needed a man who would convey its will. The gods were perfect beings who could not simply appear before people. That is why they had to look for someone to represent them. Sarah realized that the goddess needed help, but she did not understand why the cat. Britain apologized for having to do this since the girl's power was unstable. Sarah couldn't figure out why she was now in human form. They were in a dream world created by the power of Britain. Here they could be in their original form. Also, the girl could adopt and use the power of the goddess. Britain decorated the fountain and asked the girl to try to extract water from it. The goddess explained that she was the goddess of water and stars. It was natural that her incarnation could use this power. Sarah had to feel the energy of the water and become one with it, thus unlocking its full potential. The girl needed to close her eyes and stretch out her arms, feel the energy that flows in her body, and ask the water to answer the call. Britain assured the girl that she should not doubt that she would succeed. It was amazing for Sarah. Everything worked out for her. This was the power of the goddess of Britain, and if Sarah learned to control it, she could do amazing things. The girl realized that if she learned these skills, she could protect herself from any danger. Britain's strength was healing and restoration. Sarah immediately wondered if it was possible to influence the curse. If another god intervenes, it may lead to undesirable consequences. The girl immediately sank. She decided that perhaps the world would be better off without her. Britain reassured her, but time was running out and it was time for them to say goodbye. As she left, the goddess said that soon the person next to Sarah would be in danger. A person who shares his destiny with her, they need each other. Sarah couldn't believe that Castiel was her destiny. The goddess warned that in the future, not the most pleasant things will await the girl, but if she can overcome everything, she will get the life she wanted so much. Britain asked Sarah to never give up. The goddess could not fully unleash her power of peace, but gave the girl a small gift. Waking up, Sarah could not understand whether it was all a dream or reality. She realized that she was back in human form and could speak. This meant that she slept with a man in the same bed. Sarah decided to test the power that was given to her, and she felt that the energy was a little different from usual. She remembered the words of the goddess that soon the person next to her would be in danger. Some people burst into the room. They noticed Sarah. The girl tried to wake up the prince, but it was all in vain. She remembered the goddess's words about danger. The strangers were surprised to see someone awake. They let it slip among themselves that they had not been warned about this. They decided to deal with Sarah first. If she had not had time to react, then everything would have been very bad. The girl lay on top of Castiel, protecting him with her body. She couldn't let them die like that. She remembered the goddess's gift, and it seemed to work. One of the attackers ordered the second to deal with her, as she had some strange power. Sarah asked them to stop. She didn't have enough energy. The prince woke up and parried the blow of the approaching weapon. Castiel began to fight with them. Sarah realized she had to concentrate to help. The prince tried to find out who sent them, but the guys obviously weren't talkative. Leaving only one alive, Castiel demanded to know the name of the customer, but the attacker was not afraid of death and was not going to talk. The stranger fell, no longer showed signs of life. The prince said that they had poison. The guy turned his attention to the girl. Her tears were flowing. Taking her head, he asked her to wipe away her tears. Castiel asked why she bothered them. He thought they were together. The guy demanded an explanation of who she was, but Sarah didn't know where to start. It seemed to him that his mother had sent the girl, so he was looking for information. The problem was that no one had seen such a girl in the palace. Sarah tried to convince the prince that she had not done anything wrong. Castiel was going to investigate this matter, but she saved his life, so the prince wouldn't want to turn her in. Footsteps of guards were heard along the corridor. This time they came faster than usual. The prince hid Sarah in the closet, because if she was caught, she would be killed. She resisted, but he strongly told her to stay inside. Brother Aaron came to the prince with information. The hired killers had a well-thought-out escape route. One of the servants turned out to be a traitor and sprayed sleeping gas. Unfortunately, everyone involved was found dead. The guy said that the evidence would be difficult to find, since there were almost no traces left. Everything was cleaned up. But the only clue was the poison in the mouths of the killers. Quite strangely, this object looked like an ordinary stone. Castiel thought about it. It was not just a stone, but an artifact. Not everyone could get such a thing around the palace. Obviously, Theo and Roxolana arranged everything. The prince left further investigation to Aaron's brother. It was a problem, an assassination attempt the day before the inauguration. The enemies had the audacity to attack the prince right in his palace. He wanted to watch, but this was too much. 2 years ago, Castiel asked the queen for permission to execute them. He wanted to take control of everything and cut down evil in the bud. The queen was against this and did not allow it. The prince was outraged. He believed that those who looked down on the sultan should not be released. With irony, Emma said that her son has always been like this, and she, as a mother, respects his lifestyle. This angered Castiel, as he had not come to listen to her jokes. The mother asked her son to think about the other princes, because initially there were 6 of them, and now they were left alone with Theo. The woman did not believe that they could really die due to illness or accidents. Now was not the time to create even more enemies for themselves. Castiel believed that if he left it all alone, it would all happen again. According to Her Majesty, their enemies had the support of the nobles and the love of the people. It was not so easy to get rid of such people. Emma asked her son to be patient for 5 years. She promised to give him this position within 5 years. 2 years have already passed. All this time, the prince was like a dog on a leash. He was going to wait for the right moment. He ordered Brother Arnie to continue monitoring and report everything to him. Castiel couldn't believe that his training since childhood was useless. But thanks to them, he remained conscious. It was a dangerous situation. The guy could not move, and was saved only because someone kept calling him. This girl was again in front of him. The prince could not understand why she was trying to protect him, although she herself was in danger. He was also haunted by the question of how such strength could end up in such a weak body. Castiel intuitively hid it when the guards arrived. Even last time, his action was not normal behavior, but he did not know why he did it. The prince wanted to see her again when she disappeared. He wanted to know why she did this. Returning to the room, he realized that he had forgotten to order the room to clear out. He was afraid to open the closet, afraid because he might not find her there anymore. However, upon opening the closet, Castiel saw a cat sleeping sweetly. The guy drooped. He thought that the stranger had disappeared again, and what else could he expect? Leaning over the cat, he said that this animal was sleeping again while so much was happening around. When Sarah woke up, she could not understand why she was not in the closet, because she had fallen asleep in it. The room was in disarray, of which not a trace remained. Had she really dreamed it all, she thought. This cannot be, since yesterday's clothes were in the room, which means it was not a dream. The cat heard a familiar voice, Castiel's voice. He was sitting right in front of her. She was about to run, but the prince grabbed her by the skin. He demanded that the cat look him straight in the eyes. Castiel shouted at her that she was very guilty no matter how you look at it. The prince was furious that she dared to enter the bedroom of a member of the royal family without permission. The cat thought that he had guessed everything. Eyes like hers were one of a kind. Castiel continued his monologue that the cat always appears where the stranger disappears. This means that but the prince did not have time to finish. He was informed that it was time to prepare, and he left. Sarah began to worry that she had almost been discovered. She couldn't do that now. Aaron entered the room, wishing the cat good morning. The girl wanted to let her rest, but she didn't have much time. Aaron began to choose clothes for the cat, since today was the coronation of Prince Castiel. The atmosphere was more serious than Sarah had imagined, but still solemn. If she were the prince, she would have been very worried. It was great to see Castiel like this sometimes. The chief priest congratulated the prince on becoming the new sultan. Everyone gathered around expressed their congratulations to the sultan, wishing him many good things. Castiel thought that the girl who disappeared was not here. He looked for her everywhere, but failed. At least one person in the palace should have seen her. The only connection that existed was the cat. In his head, it all sounded like stupidity, because how could they be connected, except for a similar pendant around his neck? Overall, there were some common features, such as a mystical atmosphere, a scared but determined attitude. The most mysterious thing for the prince was that the stranger always disappears where the cat remains. The cat was depressed and very tired. She was thinking about that conversation with the sultan, and why he had such bad thoughts about her. If it weren't for Aaron's support, the cat definitely wouldn't have coped with all this. The girl went away to bring the cat something tasty. Sarah decided not to waste time and enjoy the street air. She sensed some energy and jumped onto the balcony to take a closer look at the place where it came from. It felt like someone was calling her, and most likely it was a goddess. Energy was drawn from the water. The cat was very pleased to touch it, as if all her experiences were washed away. After stretching a little, she fell into the fountain. Sarah didn't know how to swim in this body at all, and didn't know how to get out. The cat really didn't want to die like that. The animal was saved by some person. If he had not made it in time, she would have died. Theo turned out to be her savior. The cat was surprised to see him in front of her. The prince said that it was dangerous to wander around so late alone, as she could be kidnapped by some crazy person. It's good that Prince Theo escaped from the holiday and noticed Sarah not too late. The cat noticed that the prince looked too cheerful for a man who had run away from the party. Holding the cat in his arms, the guy sat down and thought. After a while, he asked her if she liked this palace. Sarah thought about this question. She had many good moments here, for example, the fact that she met Aaron. As for Castiel, the Sultan often stirred her heart, but the cat wasn't sure she liked it. For Theo, the palace was a cage in which there is no freedom to be found. There is only a struggle between the chosen and not. This was hard for him to endure. Suddenly, Castiel suddenly appeared. He was clearly angry. The Sultan shouted that he had searched the entire palace, and she was sitting here. Theo decided to turn it all into a joke, saying that the holiday was held in his honor, which means he could not leave it. The Sultan pretended that he did not hear what his brother said. He attacked him with accusations that he had taken the cat. Sarah tried with all her appearance to show that everything was wrong, but unfortunately, she could not speak. Theo explained that he found the cat in the fountain as she was drowning. He was lucky to save her in time. Then it dawned on Sarah that the Sultan was worried because she had disappeared. This was completely unlike him. Prince Theo sarcastically wished his brother to be careful, otherwise he could easily lose his precious kitty. Castiel was furious that the prince was allowing himself, but the latter did not calm down. He began to ridicule the fact that the cat was so expensive that the Sultan did not even give her a name. Theo believed that the cat ran away precisely because of this attitude. Having taken the animal by force, Castiel threatened his brother not to attract his attention with such things anymore, because he is smart and understands what the Sultan is talking about. Laughing, Theo prepared to leave if his brother was so uncomfortable. Sarah didn't understand if they were really returning to the holiday, but then she realized that the entrance was in a completely different direction. The Sultan began his monologue that he had been thinking for a long time about the cat and the stranger, because they never appeared in one place at the same time. They were connected by unique eye colors, the Sultan's mark on the neck. By this, he was trying to say that all his guesses were correct, and he could confirm them when he kissed the cat. Castiel asked the cat not to run away, as it would only take a second. The Sultan kissed his cat. An incredibly beautiful girl appeared in front of him. He exclaimed that he thought it was her. It seems that Castiel was hurt by Theo's words, and he asked the girl how he could address her. The stranger replied that she did not have a name that could be used here, only the name that was given to her by the director of the orphanage in which she grew up. The Sultan suggested giving her the name Brittany. This name meant that she was the child of the goddess Britannia, and if the girl really was her incarnation, then it would be most suitable. Brittany just realized that she had practically no clothes on, and it wouldn't be a bad idea to go back to the palace. Grand appeared out of nowhere. The priest was glad that he had finally found them. Brittany cried out that Grand was right and apologized for not believing him right away. The priest opened his mouth in surprise, but a second later he fell to his knees, greeting the girl, saying that her energy had become clearer. She was definitely the embodiment of the goddess of water. The girl began to ask Grand to get up. She was embarrassed by his behavior, and then the Sultan intervened, who demanded that he get up from his knees, since they had already attracted a lot of unnecessary attention with the bright light. The priest said that Brittany needed to quickly change her appearance before people came, and noticed something was wrong. Previously, the girl had not noticed this oddity. Grand's smile was very sad. Brittany immediately changed, finding herself in clothes. The Sultan said that she would now need a lot of new things. His Majesty said that he would tell Elliot's sister everything so that she could take care of this issue. The girl wondered if he was really talking about Aaron. Castiel came almost close to Brittany, taking her by the face. He asked if she was okay, if she felt anything strange, and then added that if the transformation had similar effects, then she should tell him. The girl could not understand why the Sultan was so kind today. Recently, Brittany was in so much pain that she fell out of bed, but after receiving Brittany's power, everything returned to normal, so she decided not to tell Castiel about it. By order of the Sultan, the Grand will help her. The priest wants to help the girl adapt to life in the palace. Brittany laughed because she was so tired of studying while she was preparing for entrance exams. The Sultan was at a loss as to what she was talking about. Realizing that she had said something stupid, the girl immediately corrected herself, promising to try, but asked to take care of her. Now Castiel didn't have time, so he decided to discuss the rest later. Brittany remembered that the guy burned himself right in the middle of the ceremony. Having embraced his new acquaintance, the Sultan promised her that they would see each other a little later, as if a spark had flared up between them. Brittany decided to take a nap, but was woken up by a familiar voice. When she lay down, she didn't think that anyone could come into the room. Aaron stood in front of her with a surprised look. The girl could not believe that this was the same cat. Brittany confirmed that she was taking care of her. Leaning towards Aaron, the cat girl asked if she would help her like she did before. Aaron couldn't believe her ears, but she was more surprised by the fact that she was a completely simple girl who could become an assistant to the incarnation of a goddess. Brittany immediately interrupted her and asked her to simply call her by her name. The girl happily agreed, especially since she really liked the name of the cat. Brittany asked if she could take a walk to the flower garden. It looked very beautiful to her. Aaron didn't really like this idea, since a stranger might attract too much unwanted attention. The fact was that for their empire, such an appearance was extremely rare. The assistant came up with an idea on how to hide Brittany's obvious differences and began rummaging through her suitcase to find something. She provided her with a veil, but the goddess incarnate found it too attention-grabbing. Aaron reassured her, since such veils are constantly worn by noble ladies or priests, so everything will be fine. The Grand entered the room and greeted the embodiment of Britain. Brittany asked to stop using this strange greeting and just call her by her name. The priest laughed and said that it was a cool name for a cat. The cat girl wanted to ask Grand a few questions. He didn't mind. She wondered how long she needed to stay here, because sharing a room with Castiel was awkward, to say the least. Without Brittany's help, the curse could not be lifted. It only weakened over time. If they protect the Sultan from attacks, then the curse will completely disappear, and then Brittany will be completely free. The girl realized that when the time comes, she will have to leave the palace, which is why she needs to be ready to protect herself. She didn't want to die in misfortune. She had to become stronger to do that, but it was important for Brittany to know how long it would take. According to the priest, if she is always by Castiel's side, it will take about 2 years. Brittany couldn't believe that for such a long time, she would have to share the same bed with the Sultan. Grand reassured her that at night she would again be a cat and live in a small room adjacent to the bedroom. The plan further was that with Grand coming after Castiel had left for his official residence, Brittany would receive a broad course in the culture, history, etiquette, and theology of the kingdom. Elliot had to teach the girl a few tricks for self-defense. Self-defense sounded useful to her, since in this life she decided that she should be healthy and rich and live to a ripe old age. While the priest was teaching Brittany, they began to whisper behind her back. The maids were interested in what this woman had used to melt the Sultan's heart. Rumors circulated throughout the palace that Brittany was constantly in Castiel's room and was even given the next room next door. Aaron asked the girl not to pay attention to them. Usually she would do so, but not this time. Such words cannot be ignored, Brittany thought. She approached the girls who were discussing her and said that she thanked them and that she understood that they were deliberately speaking so loudly so that she could hear. Brittany said that they were right, since she is the closest person to the Sultan, and their words are very sad because they belittle his good taste. The girls, without fear, called her a vile witch. Taking off her veil, Brittany asked her to repeat all this while looking into her face. The girls were speechless at how beautiful the woman was in front of them. Grand learned that the girl had to show her face. He was interested in the details. Brittany was absolutely calm. She said that there was a small argument. The priest was not going to blame her for this. The guy didn't see any problem in this after all. Now the number of people whispering behind her back will decrease. No one will argue with Brittany's beauty. The girl would not like to wear a veil, but she did not know what to do with the stone on her neck. Because of it, strange rumors might arise. The Sultan's cat mark cannot be cut with scissors or a knife. When transformed, it also changes shape, so there is no way for her to remove it. But Grand can use magic. It was an important item that was best kept with you. The priest was surprised that it was bothering Brittany. The stone rang loudly as she walked, and everyone around her turned around, paying attention to her. Grand agreed to remove it, since she is now a human and the mark is not needed, but he had one condition. Having removed the stone, the priest asked to wear the choker without removing it, since it is very important for the goddess of Britain. Thinking that Brittany had been studying for too long and would want to take a break, Aaron brought her tea. The girl really liked the tea. The assistant said that it was flower, chamomile tea, which was brought along the new sea route. Chamomile tea, which existed and in this world reminded the girl of the past. She drank it when she studied before entrance exams and suffered from insomnia. Brittany thanked Aaron for such delicious tea. The assistant was beside herself with happiness. The girl was very embarrassed by such gratitude. She promised to prepare the same tea for her next time. The history of the country was written with love. The Kingdom of Britain has collected many love stories over 1,000 years of existence. A variety of people could enter the harem, regardless of status and nationality. Both a man and a woman could become the sultan, so the harem changed accordingly. Brittany was surprised that women could have a harem of men. My throat suddenly began to burn, and the blood vessels throughout my body seemed to shrink. These were symptoms of transformation into a cat. The girl didn't feel this way when Castiel was nearby. With him next to him, everything seemed to be much calmer. She felt bad and flew down again. This happened almost every time she reincarnated. The Sultan managed to catch her and immediately began to find out if everything was okay with her. He was glad that he managed to catch her and asked her to read books in bed in the evening, since it was impossible to predict when the transformation would begin. She clung to him because she was very scared. Castiel chuckled that his cat was such a crybaby. Having sat her down on the bed, the Sultan asked how life was in the palace and whether anything was bothering her. Brittany wanted to say a lot, but all she could do was meow, as if Castiel had read her mind and told her that she needed to turn into a human to say anything. The Sultan began to prepare for bed. The cat could not calmly look at this, because he sleeps half naked. Does he really want her to not sleep a wink all night? Castiel apologized to the cat for taking her because of his circumstances. At first, the Sultan seemed like a bad, spoiled prince to Brittany, but maybe she was wrong after all. He could have taken advantage of her weakness, but he didn't. Looking into her eyes, Castiel thought that they needed each other so they would have to get used to it. He even thought about apologizing to her. The cat began to get nervous. The Sultan took her in his arms and smiled and said that he would go crazy from her cuteness. Now she was even more nervous. Lifting her up and touching her forehead, he said that he was very grateful to her, Brittany. This is a greenhouse that the Sultan built especially for the royal family, a very beautiful place that is full of greenery all year round. Aaron brought Brittany here, since she is quite big and you can walk for quite a long time. The cat was a little surprised that this was not just a garden, but a whole greenhouse. However, the girl came here not to just take a walk, but to have tea with the most influential man in the country. Aaron noticed that the lady was in a confident mood today. It was a little different from her usual mood. The assistant was pleased with such confidence. Brittany fell into depression many times when she found herself in an unfamiliar world. It seemed to her that she was repeating her fate again, as in her real world. Most likely, her confidence was due to the goddess Britannia and her strength, as well as her return to human form. Now she was very excited about what awaited her in the future, and she really wanted to protect the people dear to her. She really didn't want to repeat past mistakes. Brittany warned her assistant that she was not going to become someone's puppet. She was going to wear only those beautiful things that she chose. The girl said that if someone bothers Aaron because of her, then she should immediately tell her. Although she is not capable of much now, she will definitely repay her. The assistant was touched. She thought Brittany was an amazing person because others would beat or scold her for mistakes, but she treated her so well. Lady Cat realized that the young girl had a very difficult time in the palace, but she still saved her without any reason. Brittany assured the girl that she would not allow anyone to treat her badly, as she was like family to her. Erin began to cry, still thanking Brittany. Queen Emma entered the greenhouse. Lady Cat couldn't take her eyes off her. The woman noticed this and asked what she was looking at, adding that she was so cute in cat form and in human form. Brittany was not taken aback, apologizing, saying that she was fascinated by the beauty of Her Majesty. Emma laughed. The woman said that Brittany's appearance is impressive, and she is sure that her son likes her. Lady Cat was confused. She did not think that the conversation would go in such a direction. In this case, she did not know what to do. Her Majesty offered to have a cup of tea. Brittany started to get nervous again. The Queen was interested in whether there were any inconveniences during her life in the palace, but the girl assured her that everything was in order and she was well taken care of. Emma believed that with Brittany's arrival, the palace had become much more comfortable. After this phrase, the girl stopped understanding why she was called here. Brittany decided to be the first to ask why she was called here, and if they wanted to ask anything. Laughing, Emma called her quite a smart child, but today Her Majesty just wanted to spend time with her. In her opinion, Castiel previously forbade any outside women from approaching his palace, but with the advent of Brittany, he stopped paying attention to this and generally began to behave differently. The girl said that many thought that she was part of his harem, and perhaps it would be better to hide it. She again asked the Queen what her true intentions were, because she was probably invited for a reason. Emma realized that this girl was very persistent and did not like to waste time. The woman wanted to ask Brittany to take care of her son, and if she could bear this burden, then the Queen would put everything on the line and take care of the cat lady for the rest of her life. It will take Castiel several years to fully take over as Sultan, and there will be a lot of disruption in the process. If Brittany can stand this, she will be free to ask Her Majesty for anything. The girl didn't know what to say to her. Ask for a lot of money, land, and a house, or a quiet old age next to cats. She decided that hiding her feelings in such a situation was not the best idea. Plucking up courage, Brittany asked for freedom.